Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvelous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. That makes us Kelsey and Dill, I guess, right, Kels?
Yeah, I'm Dill.
Oh shit! Does that mean I'm Kelsey today? Does that mean I need to prepare notes and actually be well practiced and prepared for this podcast while you're just off the cuff making stupid remarks?
No,
Okay,
it's
phew.
okay.
Okay, you got it.
I
All
got
right.
the notes. I'll be Kelsey again. It's
All right.
fine.
Well, one of these
I'm the
days
only
we'll
one who
switch.
can handle that anyway.
Do we record on April 1st? Let me just see. Do we record on April 1st? April 1st is on a Monday this year, people. So, um,
Wow.
maybe, I figured it might be that way. Maybe there'll be something in store for you then. I don't know. We could
Let's
talk. I
see.
have a good idea for April, but we'll talk about it April 1st. My ring light's weird right now. I'm gonna fix it. How you doing, Kels? How's life?
Life is good. I'm just a little sleepy on this Saturday morning as we film for
Mm,
today, which is Monday.
right.
Um,
Yes. Illusion is
and
ruined.
yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Um, how are you doing, Dill?
I'm doing well. Yeah, no, I was gonna start spilling into like all my personal life shit, but like I don't think people want to
Mm,
hear it. But we just had our title match last week. Very exciting. Always fun to kick back into trivia.
yeah,
Very,
great
very
match.
well fought match, but also very talked about match for very specific reasons, which I will not mention because some people haven't seen it yet. That we do have a belt now, so like it's like official now. So that's always fun. It's funny, just as Matt started watching it, he like texted me. He was like, I think for the subathon, we should try to raise money to buy a belt. And I was like, aren't you in for a treat?
One
And
step
he was
ahead of you.
excited to see it. Yeah, no, but it was great. Just seeing people's reactions to the belt and reactions to the winner and reactions to the final question and reactions to our ruling and handling of it and reactions to how well Stacey played, how well Tato played, just how excited they were for both competitors. We had a lot kind of split down the middle. You had people rooting for Stacey, people rooting for Tato on social media and stuff. So it was really fun to see. Yeah, so our title match happened last week. Is there any other news you have, Kels, in terms of like Marvel news? Anything?
I personally don't have any news. I guess I haven't been paying attention that much because you seem to have a lot
I
of
do. I
things you
mean,
wanna say.
yeah. I mean, it's all around the same project, but Thunderbolts has taken a bit of a change, a bit of a switch up, in terms of some casting. So
Oh?
obviously, when you win Emmys, sometimes big job offers come in, and sometimes you decide to hold off on other job offers. So we saw two of the stars previously cast in Thunderbolts leave Thunderbolts to pursue other jobs because of scheduling conflicts, which usually just means they won Emmys and they're being offered more interesting projects. Not to say that Thunderbolts isn't going to be interesting, but especially with what Elizabeth Olsen has said and Scarlett Johansson has said about their experiences, their bad experiences working on Marvel. A lot of actors are now, I think, a lot more hesitant to work for Marvel, especially if they're well
Uh-huh.
established or like kind of at the peaks. Usually now you see like younger actors who are up and coming kind of joining in. But it's a career choice and everyone's making choices. But we did see the first one that was announced, and I'll share my screen for this one. Um, was that Stephen Yun, famously Glenn from The Walking Dead, he was on the show Beef, which he won the Emmy for Beef, announced he was departing due to scheduling conflicts. And then Lewis Pullman from Top Gun Maverick is going to be replacing him in the film, which kind of raised a little bit of controversy because that was one of the actors of color that you're replacing with a white guy. So there's been a little bit of
Yeah.
taken for that, but I do really think Lewis Pullman's very good. And I love Stephen Young, but I'm glad like Stephen Young is saying, you know what, I still have other projects I want to pursue first before getting like locked down into the studio system, which I totally respect. But
Sure.
yeah, so he is leaving Thunderbolts, and we have one other departure, which this one made me sad because I was really excited to just see her in more stuff. I just love seeing her. Io Debris
Mhm.
from The Bear, from Bottoms, she's leaving the Thunderbolts. But Geraldine Viswanathan is joining, who is in the movie Blockers. She's one of the three
Yeah.
daughters in the movie. She is in the Beanie Bubble. She's in Bad Education. So that's a fun choice of casting. I love Geraldine Viswanathan. I think she's great. She's going to be in that movie Drive Away Dolls coming out very soon. But I also
Yeah.
am upset that Io Debris won't be in the MCU, or at least not right now. But again, she's also pursuing her stuff, and she was in Spider Verse, so she's still Marvel adjacent. But those are the two big like casting switch ups for Thunderbolts. Any thoughts
Wow.
on that?
Um, yeah, that's really interesting. I don't even know when we're even expecting Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I don't know. I know they probably haven't started obviously filming, but yeah,
Every
it's so
is
right
so
now.
much. I saw an interview of, what's his name? Bucky.
Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan. Oh my god, I could not think of that for the life of me. I would have just lost the trivia match
Oh my
again.
god, on that question too. Wow.
Sebastian Stan was doing an interview because he's doing quite a bit of work right now,
Mhm.
and the Thunderbolts question had come up, and he said, "Yeah, we haven't even started working on it yet."
Right.
So it's like who knows what we're gonna get and what's gonna
Mhm.
change now
Right.
in the aftermath of our a big change that has happened recently in the MCU. So
Yeah, and just in
yeah,
the entertainment world in general with the strikes and with, AI and all
yeah,
that stuff. Because also Sebastian Stan he had like 2 movies at Sundance this year, and that just wrapped, so he was busy with that, and then I know
yeah.
What's it called? Brave New World? Captain America? I don't remember the title of it. That's
New
going through reshoots
new
because the first, like, test screenings were awful, so now they're reshooting it. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but I think that's fine. It means they're taking their time. They're, trying to figure out what they need to do. Obviously, they kicked
Yeah,
Jonathan Majors out. He's out as Kang, which I think we've already
yeah,
covered on this channel. So, like, there's a lot of things happening right now that's kind of like reset, but I think that's needed, and I think it's important,
yeah,
and we'll hopefully see it
for
lead to a
sure.
positive change. But very exciting casting, but also sad to see them depart. Even though they're still going to be around, there's obviously going to be a window for them to join whenever they want. Like those are the types of
Right.
actors who now can get any part they want, which is cool. It's cool to see actors take off like that. I'll ask you, Kels, what was the best thing you watched this week?
So last week I got COVID, and
Yeah, yeah, I'm
as
sorry.
yes, as we recorded during the match, and so I was confined to my room
Mhm.
for 5 days. And so I had watched the entire season, the entire 2 seasons of The Bear.
Oh,
And
perfect
I
timing. Wow.
thoroughly enjoyed that.
Mm,
Thoroughly had a great time. I thought that it was really funny, really well written,
mhm.
um, and
Really
just
well
like
acted. Yeah.
yeah, really, really well acted as well. So,
Mhm.
I would have to say that.
So you're
What about
jumping
you,
aboard
Dylan?
the Iowa debris train,
I
or you're
thought she
already on?
was fine.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay. Okay. That's all she's saying. That's all she wrote. Okay.
I
I thought you
mean,
were gonna
yeah,
elaborate.
she
No, it's
she
fine.
she was she was fun, and she did what she needed to do. I just think that the big standout for me, honestly, of the show is the writing. Like, I think that,
Mhm.
the
Right.
writers and the creator, like, deserves all the recognition, and I it's great that her and both Jeremy Allen White have been, getting awarded at literally everywhere they go. They're
Yeah.
they're taking home
Right.
trophies. But, I like to always give a shout out to, like, the creative team,
Right.
because that's one of my favorite parts of diving deep into, like, the Marvel universe, is like seeing all the people and what goes into making all of it happen. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, the best thing I watched this week, it's part of my podcast of wait, Dylan's never seen that. The Parent Trap I watched for the first time this week.
oh,
And
nice.
I loved it. Of course, it's great.
Yeah.
Just so much more than I expected it to be. I knew there was like I didn't know what I expected it to be, but I didn't expect it to be
Mhm.
that. So I'm very happy with uh, how it read to me or viewed. I don't know the word for it, but how it played. I
Yeah.
guess. Because I was
I
worried. I
love
was
that
like,
for
it's
you.
such a nostalgic one of so many people. Like, am I gonna like it as much because I didn't grow up with it? But it's one of those things I don't think
Mhm.
you need to grow up with. And I love Nancy Myers, so and also I had just seen The Holiday for the first time and I didn't love it. And I'm
Mm.
like, do I like Nancy Myers movies? And then I watched this. I was like, no, The Holiday borrows a lot from Parent Trap, but does it much worse. So I was like, The Parent Trap's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited. That podcast should be coming out this weekend. So you probably have already heard it, people. If you're listening, if you do listen to my podcast, you don't have to. There's no pressure. But if you want to make me happy, but happiness isn't everything, no, but that's the best thing I watched this week. We also haven't covered Oscar nominations. There were only 2 Marvel Oscar nominations, but I figured I'd bring them up. Guardians of
Yeah.
the Galaxy Volume 3 was nominated for Best Visual Effects, and Spider-Verse was
Nice.
nominated for Best Animated Feature. So congratulations to those films. Obviously, the Marvels and Quantumania got 0. So We kind of predicted that. I thought Spider-Verse might get a few more. I thought it might pick up other nominations, and I thought Guardians should have been shortlisted for Best Makeup, but it wasn't even on the
Yeah.
shortlist. So I'm glad though that each of those got a nomination because I think those
Yeah.
are worthy nominations. I think they could both win too. I think Guardians is a little tougher because they've never awarded a Marvel movie in Best Visual Effects. But I do
Uh,
think I could very well see Spider-Verse winning animated.
yeah. And Robert Downey Jr. is nominated for sporting.
Oh my god, yeah. Wait, I forgot about literally all of that. Yeah, because we always like to
I
talk about our Marvel adjacent. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's look through this real quick. Yeah, so for best actor, we have two Marvel representatives. We have Jeffrey Wright, our Watcher,
Mhm.
who's nominated for American Fiction. We have Bradley Cooper, our Rocket Raccoon, who's nominated for
Oh,
Maestro.
yeah.
I believe the other three have not been in any, but I'll say them anyway. Killian Murphy and Paul Giamatti and Coleman Domingo. They're not in the MCU yet, I don't think.
No.
Um, Best Actress from Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. We have Emma Stone, who's nominated for Poor Things.
Yeah.
And I believe, and the Central Intelligence, Annette Bening is nominated for Naiad. So that's two Marvel reps right there. Also nominated Sandra Hüller, Lily Gladstone, and Carey Mulligan. Supporting actor, as Kelsey said, Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man's nominated against Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, who is
Yes.
also against Chadwick's or Black Panther's uncle, Sterling K. Brown, for
Oh,
American
yes.
Fiction from Black Panther, and then also up against Robert De Niro and Ryan Gosling. De Niro's more of a DC actor because of Joker. Then supporting actress, I believe that's the only category where we have no Marvel rep. Divine Joy Randolph, Danielle Brooks, Emily Blunt, America Ferrera, Jodie Foster. Yeah, very exciting. I thank you for bringing those up because I totally forgot about it. Yeah, very exciting. Have you been watching any of these Oscar movies? I know you love Poor Things, and Barbie.
Um, yeah, I have. There's still a few that I wanna hit, like, I wanna watch Maestro, I wanna
Mm.
watch, Past Lives.
Mm.
Um, I really wanna see American Fiction. That
Mhm.
was, like, a real curveball right at, like, it felt like they were shooting right at the buzzer with that one because it's just come out and it, like,
Yeah.
swept with all these nominations,
Mhm.
so that one's gotta be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a few I wanna hit before Oscars, but I'm confident that I'll be able to make that happen. I'm definitely not going for the death wave or whatever it's
Death
called.
Race.
What is it? Death
Death
Race.
Race.
Death
Yeah. I'm
Race. I
I'm
was
trying
kinda
it for the first
close.
time. I'm trying it for the first time this year, but like trying to find those obscure documentaries and shorts is
Yeah.
sometimes
Oh,
tough.
I really wanna see the one that you recommended to me last week, The Society of the Snow.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but it's good. It's good. It's like
Wanna watch
it's
that one.
jarring. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't watch any while I was in quarantine just because I know that my friends will also wanna see these movies, and I didn't wanna
Right.
watch them by myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right. So there we go. There's our little preamble. We're changing it up this year. We're doing a little bit of like kind of just checking in at the beginning because this is our weekly show. Like this is the show that we get to actually check in every week for. So I think it's important to like kind of just share what we watched and what's going on in the news. But speaking of, let's talk about something that was in the news a month ago, Echo, which we're still working our way through. Kelsey and I are
Yes.
going week by week rather than all five at once because, you know, what we need to fill the time. Deadpool 3 is a while away and Madam Web is sadly approaching, but like we still need to fill
Yes.
the time. Um, so this week will be Echo episode 3. Next week will be Echo episode 4. Then we'll do Madam Web. Then we'll do Echo episode 5. Then we'll do a trivia. We got a good schedule down. But Kelsey, episode 3. Echo,
Yes.
take us away.
Okay, let's talk
Or
about it.
or or
So,
if you wanna give your thoughts. I don't know what we do first. I've kinda forgot.
um, I Dill, because we had taken like 2 weeks basically, we talked about episode 2, then we had trivia, and now we're talking about this one. I kind of was like, "Oh yeah, where are we again?" And so this one the whole premise of this episode kind of came out of left field for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless.
Yeah, I think, like, the last 20 minutes of this episode or 15 is really good because it's like, this is
Yeah.
your action, and this is your, like, "Okay, this is where we're propelling the series to." Whereas, like, the first, like, half hour, I was like, "Alright." Like, it was because a second episode, I remember us being just like, "Alright, this kinda feels like a bridge episode to something bigger in the next episode," and this still felt like a little bit of a
Yeah.
bridge. it answered some questions as to who was good, who was bad that we were kind of questioning, which is important.
Yeah.
But it really didn't, for me, push it much further. But I do still think the action of the fighting was good enough to hold my attention, and I still
Yeah.
like the framing device of like, oh, showing the flashbacks to then tie it into the future. I like that, but now it's kind of getting a little gimmicky to where I'm like, okay, I kind of know where every episode's going now. So I'm excited with what they brought into the very end of this episode, so where we can like finally move on and kind of go into some deeper and probably darker things. Especially because I'm
Right.
also waiting for this series to get a little bit darker because it's really hasn't. I mean, it's getting the viewer discretion advised, but like
Right.
for me, I'm waiting for it to go that extra mile, which I don't know if it will, but that's fine. But yeah, I honestly forgot that this was episode 3 because I just feel like it feels like it's later in the season, but it's only 5 episodes,
Mhm.
so we're past the halfway point, but it's, like, one of those things where I was watching it, I was like, "We're really only at episode 3 because like, 3, you'd think, like, we're just getting started, but now it's like, "Oh, we're hitting the last act," which is kind of interesting with a 5-episode series. That's why I wish they had just made this a 3-hour movie, you know?
Right.
But
Okay, so in the last episode we had, as I'm looking at my notes from episode 2, and I'm like, I'm trying so hard to like connect the two instances that happened between episode 2 and episode 3. And so the last thing that we come off on is that Maya inserted the device in
mhm,
the freight car that was going to the shipping yard. The shipping yard exploded. And then Henry got mad at her and was saying, like, you're bringing a war to all these people that you love, keep this
right,
shit in New York kind of thing and
mhm,
whatever. So we open this episode, like you said, in a flashback. We're kind of like it's getting told the story of Tuklo
mm,
is getting told to us through like an old timey, like 1800 style silent film, which I
mm,
thought was, obviously artistically a different choice. So it's
yeah,
it's like, oh wow, something different. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so we learn about the Light Horsemen, which was basically the Native American police force that they created to keep the peace between the different tribes living in America at the time. And we're introduced to Tuklo's father, who's one of the Light Horsemen, and she wants to join. She's got this like Annie, get your gun kind of vibe going, where she's just like quick on the trigger. She's an excellent shot. She wants to protect people, but obviously she's a woman, and her place, as her father puts it, is a life giver, whereas men are life takers. So she's not able to join the Light Horsemen until she kind of proves herself by saving them one day when they kind of like walk into this trap. They're outnumbered, and she's able to save them from the criminals they've been searching for. So then we get our intro, and our first official scene of the episode is we're at Grandpa's convenience store, and Grandma comes in to talk to him about Maya being there. She's still very upset
yeah.
that Maya's back in town. And Grandpa is just trying to smash. He's like, "Hey, let's step into my office and come,
Yeah,
like let's make something happen here." And she's like, "Listen, we're not those people anymore. That was a long time ago. Like we're very different now." But we actually find out later on in the episode that they're not even together anymore. So the
no.
strain of losing their daughter put such a strain on their relationship that they're not even together.
Yeah, I'm very curious with these 2 because we'll talk about it later, but, like, it just
Yeah.
kinda she's kind of left this whole storyline now to where it feels like the story's going to a different one. I
Yeah.
feel like if this is kind of the resolution of these characters, it's a little weird. We get a good, like, final note with Grandpa, but, like, with
Yeah.
Grandma, I just feel like is it gonna just end with her just being kind of just forever pissed off. Like it almost felt like there was no closure for Grandma, and I was waiting for that turn,
Yeah.
but it didn't really seem to come. And I guess it could happen, but we got 2 episodes left, so I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. It just felt like a weird characterization for her. Like I'd expect her to
Yeah.
go through growth, but it's very one note. At least right now, I mean, we might be wrong later, but I just feel like if this is the end of that Grandpa Grandma chapter, like it felt a little weird. I feel like Grandma was kind of underserviced, unless we're just supposed to be like wow, she just never got over it, so because some people don't. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know, but it just felt a little unfulfilling, I think. But
Well, we can talk more about that at the end of the episode because I feel like I, you know, I have I've made an assumption about how this episode kind of ends, and
Okay.
we can talk about later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But basically the note that they end on here in this scene specifically is that, grandpa kind of tells her, like, why don't you stop? You don't even have to talk to her. Maybe for once in your life you should try listening.
Yeah.
So I think that they kind of leave it in this space where it feels like she's considering maybe, entertaining the idea of having a conversation with Maya about
Right.
everything that happened.
Which is also just so interesting because she's also deaf. So like, there's that element of like listening.
Yeah.
I just think that's really cool how
Right.
they like talk about language and like even later in the episode, like Maya's talking to her sister and she's like, listen, or cousin, she's like, listen. She like does the, and I'm like, wait, that's just so interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
the communication where it's like, she's not even talking verbally, but like there's still that sense that she's being talked over. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that's very interesting. Yeah.
So then we cut to the scene where Maya's going for a walk and she kind of senses the presence of like either being watched or being followed. And as she turns back around to continue walking, she actually encounters one of the women from the visions that she's been seeing, the Chufta leader, the Choctaw. Sorry, I was
You got
in
there.
her
I was
name
letting
is
you work
Chuff.
it out. I was
Her
letting you
name
work.
is Chuffa.
Yeah,
Her
I'm
name
letting
is
you
not
work that.
Chuffa. It's like Chaffa. Um,
Off.
but anyway, so she appears in front of her. She gets these visions of all of the past women
Mhm.
that we're pretty sure is connected to mine somehow. And then two people reach from behind her, take her, snatch her, chloroform her. She's knocked
Mhm.
out. She wakes up hanging upside down in the roller rink, obviously tied by her feet. And because of her prosthetic foot, she's able to free herself. And so she kind of, lands awkwardly on the ground. We also
Right.
see that Henry is tied up in the background as well, and
Mm.
that the people who are kind of running this operation, the goons, are Vicky, the guy that we met in the first episode who was polishing the shoes for the roller rink. Um, and then he's got these two women with him, which I thought was an interesting choice because I feel like you usually see like a group of men being like the goons, but and it's literally in the name like men, but he's got hench women, which I thought was progressive, even
Yes.
though they're kind of useless, but it's
Yeah.
fine.
Hey, you
Um
need women could be useless henchmen too.
exactly. Exactly. That they're multifaceted.
Mm.
We women are multifaceted. We can be just as useless as men, okay? So they end up tying her up again and throwing her in a storage unit. Um, Bonnie shows up to the roller rink, looking to talk to her Uncle Henry. And they let him free because they want her to like talk to her basically to get rid of her. And he's, making up some excuse about how he's like, oh, I had to shut the roller rink down. I'm up to my ears in paperwork. I got to do these taxes, yada, yada. But meanwhile, underneath where no one can see him, he's actually signing to her, like, you need to leave now, go. And so she's like, okay, well, good talking to you. See you later. And so she gets out to her truck. She goes to, call for her like EMT squad, I'm
Mhm.
sure. And she is also snatched from behind. She gets thrown in the same storage unit or storage closet rather with Maya. And this is the first time they've seen each other in a very, very long time.
Pretty shitty circumstances for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
And so Maya cuts them free. She starts immediately looking for a way to get them out of this situation. She's looking for something they can use to escape. And Bonnie's trying to talk to her. She's like, "Hey, what happened? Like, why didn't you answer any of my calls, texts, emails? Like, what's wrong?" And Maya's like, "Well, what can I say? We drifted apart. Like that happens. It's life." And Bonnie's like, "No, we didn't drift apart. You cut off all communication with me." So
Mhm.
obviously there's, this feeling of closure that Bonnie never got from just being, her cousin disappearing on her.
Right.
Um so the goons come back because they suspect that, they're like, "Oh, we've heard movement and we think that, they broke free. So
Mhm.
they get back into their positions that they left them. They pretend to still be tied up. Um, when one of the goons actually drops or throws, something happens where a phone lands in front of Maya. She grabs it, and obviously they realize, like, oh great, they're not even tied up anymore. And so they start threatening to shoot Maya, but Vicky, the main guy, is like, no, you can't shoot her because then we won't get paid. Like, we have to stay here, or else we can't, we have to keep her alive, or else we won't collect the ransom. um and that's when Bonnie is like, okay, just like let me talk to her. I'll explain to her like what's going on. And she tells her like they're waiting for someone. There's a ransom for you. Someone's coming to get you basically for money. And as a distraction, Maya's like, okay, great. I'm gonna punch you now. And so she punches Bonnie. They go flying out of the storage unit. She locks the door behind her and she starts working on this gadget she's going to use, some kind of weapon
Mhm.
she's going to use to help herself
Yeah.
escape. And so the guys from the oh, okay, so we find out that the people who are coming to basically get Maya is the goons from the shipping yard that she exploded.
Yeah.
And so they come strolling in and they're like, all right, well, you better be telling the truth. Like, don't be wasting my time. And Vicky's like, listen, you're going to get exactly what you want as long as you give me the money. And this
Mhm.
guy has no intention of giving him any money. Like, this guy's an idiot. Um, so Bridget, I did write her name down. Their names are Bridget and Grace, the two women that he was with. Bridget is, guarding the storage closet that Maya is locked in, and she's actually watching a video on how to conduct a successful hostage negotiation. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but she's literally watching like a YouTube video of like someone explaining to her like what the
Yeah.
best thing to do is in this situation, which I thought was hilarious.
That's a good
And
funny
so
gag, yeah.
Maya kind of creates this kind of gun that shoots kind of like the nuts and like those things that you use to build things with, or it's like maybe the different wheels from the roller skates as well. She's like using this device to as her weapon. So she's able to shoot out one of the lights. It goes dark. Obviously Bridget's like, what the hell? She gets into the storage unit. Maya starts shooting her with the weapon, and she's able to tie her up. She sends a picture to the other two, Vicky and Grace, and is like, XOXO Maya. And that's when Grace is like, I take my leave. I've seen enough. I'm just gonna go check on this little problem. And we find out later that she's just hitting the road. She's like, I'm out. This is all going haywire. I'm not doing this anymore. And so oh yeah, the guy from the shipping yard whose name I never learned, actually ends up killing Vicky, and so we kind of have this moment where he gets like shot in the back and like thrown over out of the roller rink. He lands on a table, face looking at Henry and Bonnie, who are both sitting on a bench, and we just have this like shot of his like really bloody face from him coughing up
Mm,
blood and like it like dripping down his face after getting shot. And I think that's where the viewer discretion is advised warning
true.
comes in.
Right.
I actually had a thought about this still when I was watching this episode. I thought that maybe they're easing into this concept a little bit so that when Daredevil Born Again happens, like
Right.
that's
They
when
can
we're
go
really
full
going to get
throttle.
the nitty gritty stuff. It's kind of like we're testing out the waters a little bit with
Yeah.
this series. I don't think that they wanted to do anything too drastic that would turn viewers off or make parents not want their kids to participate in like the MCU's content anymore. Like, I don't know. But I think that also maybe they just don't want any other project to take away from the seriousness and the impact of Daredevil, because that's when
Right.
we see really our best and most gritty and gruesome combat sequences. So
That's a good
maybe
point.
they're just
Yeah.
kind of like setting the tone a little bit
Right.
with Echo so that the punches like really hit and everything like really hits and there's a huge
Yeah.
reactions
And
for
so it's not a
Daredevil.
huge leap. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that was my thought as I was watching this, because we really only got in like one moment every
Right.
episode
Yeah.
that's kind of really like, ooh, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it's like with Daredevil, it's like every scene you're like, ah, like e.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So after killing Vicky, the guy from the shipping yard finally just turns his attention to Bonnie and Henry and is like, all right, so you're gonna tell me where Maya is, or like I'm gonna fucking kill you. And that is when the roller rinks lights get shut out. It's this blaring red light everywhere, and screamo music is blaring all throughout the speakers. And Henry's like, oh well, the what's that called? Where you do all the lights? Switchboard? Maybe. The switchboard's over in the laser tag area. And so we get this really cool action sequences in different parts of the roller rink where Maya is just picking off these guys one by one. She's using her weapon. She's using, everything that she has available to her, her prosthetic leg. She's utilizing the roller rink itself, and she's, there's a moment where they break through the Make America Skate Again wall, which I
Mhm.
thought was like a great little like, yeah, like fuck that wall and
Yeah.
that's saying like we're
It's
gonna
funny because
tear this down.
earlier we were like, what is the
Yeah,
purpose of that? Why did they focus on that? And now we kind of
yeah.
see like it was to make this like fun gag. Yeah.
Well, I also had a thought about that too, because like maybe I'm just interpreting this because this is how I'm interpreting it, but I was like, Kingpin is kind of like the Trump
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
MCU.
Yeah.
Like
No,
he's
that's a good
this
point.
like untouchable force that like is above the law and can do whatever the fuck he wants
Right.
and is
Does
just so
Kingpin
evil
own
and
the roller
gross.
rink though?
No.
Right. So I didn't know why it was at that roller rink. That was the thing.
Right.
Unless it's just
I
to
don't
tell the viewer, like,
well,
look, this is a similarity, because,
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know why it would have said it in the roller rink. So I think it was a purely creative choice on the directors or the
Yeah.
filmmakers to, like, put that gag in there. I don't think it's, like, a
Yeah.
character conscious thing, but just interesting to look at, but
Yeah. And then we get this great montage of her kind of using all the different arcade games that are
yeah,
available
that
to
was
her
awesome.
as like weapons with like the skee balls, and there's like a
Pinball,
ball
yeah,
pit where the pinball machine, and there's a ball pit moment where she actually slices a guy's throat with like the little um like the knife that's attached to her boot that we saw earlier in the storage closet. She like,
mhm,
slashes that guy's throat. He falls into the ball pit. She's getting shoved in a crane machine. She's throwing the ski
yeah,
balls. She's using the gun from the shooter game to like fuck him up. And she
mhm,
does all of this, all for it to end with her just getting tied up with a gun pointed at her head anyway, because
right,
at push comes to shove and like it's revealed that Bonnie is like being held hostage by the main guy, and she's like, okay, well, I can't put Bonnie's life at risk, so like I basically have to surrender. And so
mhm,
just when this guy gets, Henry and Maya on their knees, guns pointed at their heads, he gets a phone call. And we all know who this phone call came from. And basically the call is probably saying something along the lines of like, don't do anything, stop what you're doing, leave. I'm gonna handle this. Just like get the fuck out of there.
mhm.
And so
Except it
they all
sounds a little
leave.
bit more like, "Don't leave. I'll handle this." I love
Yeah,
it. I know you
exactly.
hate it, but I love it.
It's like if it was for some of his lines, it would be fine. But it's like every line is like line,
The same delivery.
hold, pause, same delivery, same like pattern. Like it's just like it's I'm
Ah,
getting over it.
okay.
Anyway, so they leave. Maya and Bonnie have a conversation outside, and she's like, you need to call the police. Like, what the fuck was that? And she's like, listen, they're not going to come after you. I'm going to make sure that nothing ever happens to you. They're purely here for me, and I'm going to fix this. And she promises that they're going to like catch up and talk. She's like, I promise, like, I'll stay in touch. We'll talk about this later.
Right.
And so then we get the scene where Henry finally agrees to help Maya out. He's like, listen, now we've both, like, everything we've been doing has finally caught up to us. Like, we obviously both need each other's help. Like, I'm in. And so Grandpa comes over to Maya's house to give her her brand new prosthetic leg. He gives her this like fancy like piece to attach to it, and they kind of have this conversation about her representing her people and her culture even when she's not in Oklahoma, when she's out in New York, and being
Right.
being a badass. And the conversation also once again circles back to her grandmother and like what they can do to like make amends. And I think by the end of this episode, Maya kind of decides, like, you know what, I'm going to try to go make this peace offering. I'm going to go to try and talk to her. And
Mhm.
obviously, as she gets to her grandmother's house, there is someone waiting for her there. And it is Kingpin himself,
Yeah.
and we
With his
see
one
him with
eye.
his
Yeah.
one eye, his bandages, and no words get exchanged. And it's this dramatic moment, and I literally wrote down in my notes like dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Um,
Also interesting
so
because we've never seen him
yeah,
talk to her without a interpreter, which will be interesting. Um,
right,
yeah, so
right.
yeah, maybe that's why no words were spoken, maybe because he doesn't know how to communicate. But yeah,
That's super fair.
I think this is where we're gonna like really get into like the crux of the show, which is kind of sad to say because it's like we got 2 episodes left, and I think that's where it's just like I don't know. I'm very interested to see why they decided on 5 episodes total. But that's my whole thing. Like, is she gonna get
Yeah,
back home? Like, because she keeps saying like, "Oh, we'll talk, we'll catch up to the sister or to the cousin," and then like
cousin.
the mother kind of has just or the grandmother has that one final shot where she's just kind of like staring off while everyone's singing, and it's like things like that where I'm like is this kind of just where we're gonna end these characters for now? Because I don't see them ever coming back to like those characters again unless it's in the
Hmm.
show. But is there
Yeah,
time to cycle back? And that's where I'm kind of like, if
yeah.
this is the end of those characters, like it just feels unfulfilling. They build up so much of this backstory only for them to really kind of not resolve much, but it's more like a we'll work on it. But like
Mm,
in a show, it's like you want that kind of resolution if this is the final time. Because just based on the reception and the popularity of the show, it's not going to get a season two, and it's not going to
right.
get she might be in some movies, but they're not going to make a movie about her and her family. That's where I'm kind of just like because like Miss Marvel, they knew they were doing the Marvels. They knew they were going to explore that family dynamic even further. Here, it's like I don't know if we're
Mm,
going to explore the family dynamic, and that was what I was really interested to see. And I don't feel like it ever progressed. I think her and the grandfather had some good like moments and probably good closure with her getting the new leg and stuff. But like everything
mm,
else just feels like too short lived for in terms of the cousin and like not
yeah.
no closure for the mother or the grandmother, but like maybe we'll cycle back to an episode 5 and people have seen it so they know. But like I don't know, that was the one element where I was like, okay. Like I think Kingpin is a more interesting and more important story beat to cover, but it's also like this whole family stuff, it just feels for naught right now. Like and
Yeah.
Biscuits it was not even in this episode. So like it's like I just feel like they're kind of just introducing these characters to add to Maya's story, but then they're not resolving anything with them. And that's my one thing right now that I'm like,
Yeah, Dale, I think that's been the, common, like the biggest complaint about the MCU TV series is because what's missing and what's making them not feel like a well-rounded series is the fact that there's no B plots. Like we get the one A plot with our main character, and we see everything that, that drives that one plot forward. Where it's like if we had B plots, we could see the back and forth relationship between grandma and grandpa, and that like maybe they are trying to work on things, like something that we were in the this like this festival that they've been planning for in the last episode wasn't brought up again this episode. And I feel like if we cut to some scenes with grandma doing that and working on
right,
that and talking to different people in the town, like we would have opened up more to like her character and what she was thinking and what she plans to do about like Maya
absolutely,
being in town.
yeah. Yeah,
There
you're
we could
right.
have involved
Yeah,
Biscuits and Bonnie much
good point.
more,
Yeah,
because that's the thing, that's the big thing that's missing for me, is that I feel like, we're focusing so much on like Echo, as we should, because, it's whose name sells the tickets to the movies, right? Um, but at the same time, I think that's what has been lacking in all of
I agree.
these series.
Yeah,
But
and
I do think
the
that
best series do have the B plot. I mean, look at Daredevil. You get a
yeah,
lot with Foggy and, what's her
yeah.
name? I forget her name right now off the top of my head, but also
Um
you get Kingpin himself has his own B plots. He's not just the
Karen.
villain Karen and Foggy, but you
Yeah.
also don't get a lot of, like there's not a lot of Matt and Kingpin in that show. It's a lot Kingpin
Yeah.
is a lot of that B plot, and then in season 2, it's the Punisher. Like, I think that's the thing
Yeah.
is like those shows do such a good job. Like, and I think the best Marvel movies, even the villains are the B plot, whereas here
Mhm.
Kingpin is very much on the side, and like the villains aren't. The other villains are just kind of like you said, henchmen. You know, they're useless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that, and I think the B plot is what's missing. There's that framing device that I still like at the beginning of every episode, but it's like that feels
Mhm.
merely like a gimmick at this point, a framing device, than like actually having its own like cohesive story. You know, like I don't know.
Mhm.
I think you nailed it though with the whole B plot A plot thing, and I think it's also the matter of 5 episodes. It's just not enough time. Just make a
Yeah.
movie then, or make it longer, or I don't know. You know, it's
Yeah.
tough. Make the episodes longer. I
Those are
don't
the
know.
2 options. Either make it longer and make a more cohesive story about each in each individual character, or just make it a movie. And,
Yeah.
like, do it like the Disney Plus originals have been dropping, that they've just been coming out on Disney Plus. There's been no, like, theatrical releases for some of the Disney Plus originals. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like they could just be dropping MCU films like that. Like, they don't have to be, like, these huge things anymore, because honestly, the rate the MCU's been going, they haven't been huge, big box office sellers anyway.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. There you go.
anyway, oh,
Otherwise, yeah, yeah.
I sorry, just also this, you reminded me of this when you had mentioned the thing about him not talking to her because, like, he doesn't talk to her in sign language. And because I had watched the Alakwa Cox interview on Jimmy Fallon, and because I wanted to hear her talk about it and, like, hear her side of what it's like filming the show and everything. And she had talked about how you know, Vincent D'Onofrio's character Kingpin doesn't sign to her. So it's very much a choice that they made for the character. So
Yeah.
it's not just, an actor
Oh,
being
I was 100%
lazy
on
or
that train too. You were the one who was like,
No,
I that's
you
shitty of him.
convinced me. No, yeah.
I
Well,
can't
I
believe your
got
mind
nervous
went there
because
though.
I was like, "Oh, he's not gonna learn this thing." I got a little annoyed because I was worried, but then
Kelsey,
it made more
when you and I
sense.
get our eyes on a Marvel check, not necessarily for ourselves, but when we are able to like visualize the amount of money these actors are getting, you will do anything for that money. Like that
Right.
money, it's like if you have to learn sign language, you learn sign language for that movie. You
But
know?
also, I just thought of it in, like, a just like an inclusive, like, tolerance kinda way. Like, why wouldn't you want to, like, at least learn something to communicate with one of your actors? So I
Listen,
was getting defensive on behalf of Alakwa.
that man spoke to dinosaurs in Jurassic World. He can do it. Um,
So she was saying it was interesting that she, you know, needs to know when his lines are done. So the way that they do that is they have a vibrate she wears a device that vibrates on her to let her know that his line is done and that it's her turn to start talking. And so she was like, the first few times I wore it, it would scare the shit out of me. And like it would just go, "Wee," and she'd be like, oh, and then it would like
right.
totally take her out of like these emotional scenes that she was doing. So it was just
Yeah, I
like,
love that. Yeah,
it was just a fun little story I wanted to share.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
that was the
it's
episode.
hard to make predictions because I'm like, I don't know now. It's kind of like going to this next phase of the show, which
Right.
is weird to say with 2 episodes left. But I'm just excited to see where it
Right.
follows because I do like the presence of Kingpin. I think it's an interesting dynamic to the MCU, kind of like mirroring real life in the most like authentic way in terms of like mob bosses and people in
Yeah.
power and political stuff, which has always been the draw for me with Kingpin. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say. I thought this was an okay episode. Like again, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's not bad, but it's also like
Yeah.
I wasn't leaving this being like that was such a great episode. I'm just like, all right, great. And I think that's kind of you know better than usual for Marvel at this point. So yeah,
Right.
I'm happy.
Honestly, my favorite part of this series for me, Dill, has been this like through line of connecting her with past, her ancestors and these,
Hmm.
women from the past. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's cool.
looking forward to that coming all to a head and like seeing, just what these powers that she's unlocked within herself, just exactly what they do and what that means for her.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking forward to the
Hell
most.
yeah.
Like you said, it's kind of hard to make predictions because it just feels like,
Right.
we're dealing with the same conflict over and over again, which is she going to talk to her grandma? Is she going to talk to Bonnie? What's Kingpin up to? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So that is our episode 3 review. Stay tuned next week. We will talk about episode 4. I'll give you our breakdown, our schedule for the next few weeks. Episode 4 will be on the 12th. And then because Madam Web comes out that next weekend, the 19th will be a Madam Web review. We will do Echo episode 5, the finale on the
5.
26th, and then March will be a lot of like trivia and kind of catching up with that, movie clubs and stuff. We're hoping to get those filmed this month so we can like air them next month. Because also, spoiler alert, there will be a rematch for trivia, which is pretty big. Which we've never really seen an immediate rematch, but because of the circumstances of the match and the idea that someone literally won 6 matches in a row, they should be, given another, if they want another shot. They've kind of become the number 1 contender just by nature. So, it's going to be a fun rematch to see. And yeah, there's not much else to tease. Except keep following. Kelsey's roommate is doing this really cool series where they're watching Valentine's Day movies, and Kelsey's been TikToking them, reposting them. So go to
Reposting them.
Kelsey's TikTok, Kelsey A. Kilp, to see those reshares, and then follow her roommate Lily on there too, because she posts great stuff as well. But yeah, like you can find those TikToks from Kelsey resharing them. Otherwise, there's not much else from me. You can find me Dylan_Randazzo Twitter, Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok, and the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I posted my Sundance Best of the Fest. So if you want to know what cool movies you can see later in the year that might be coming to Netflix, Hulu, all those other things, go check that out. And also stay tuned for some fun stuff. Subathon's coming in April. We're going to be teasing that a bit, including kind of fulfilling everyone else's subathon request from last year. So like, I know Carly, I got to make you a James Gunn video. I will do that. JD, I got to make you a Jurassic Park one. I will do that. It's coming. That's it for me. Anything else from you, Kels?
No, you can follow me on Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You could follow me on TikTok at Kelsey A. Kilp, and my letterbox is the exact same thing at Kelsey A. Kilp.
There you go. Yes, follow her letterbox. It's a fun time over there. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.